2 years ago, an author named Mark Lawrence ran a little contest to test how good AI was at writing very short stories, in this case about 300-word flash fiction. He had 4 writers who have sold a lot of books between them, human writers, write 4 of the stories, and ChatGPT write the other 4. Let's read what he said about the test when he ran it 2 years ago. He says, "In terms of ratings, when we did this 2 years ago, the scores were low. 6 of the 8 entries scored 3 stars or less. The people I can attract to vote in this like to read books. Short stories are unpopular in comparison, and the shorter they get, the harder it is to tell a good tale." I'd agree with that as an author myself and someone who enters a lot of contests that are often anything from 100 words to 1,000 words. You just have fewer words to work with to tell a good story, and really, for something like 100-word microfiction, you really have to change the format of the story. So he says, "The ungenerous will suggest it's simply because none of the entries were great. I feel it's because the book readers rate short stories lower than books." 2 years later, that's now, he's running the test again, and he says this time, 5 of the 8 entries scored 3 stars or above. You can consider the results below to see if that was because the humans did better, or the AI did better, or both. Before we have a look at any of the stories for the new contest, let's have a look at who wrote the human stories. The contributing authors have sold around 15 million books between them, and they are Robin Hobb, Jenny Wirtz, Christian Cameron and Miles Cameron, and me. That's Mark Lawrence, not me. These are some serious authors, but ChatGPT has improved a lot over the last 2 years, so I think this will make a good test. This is the page, if anyone wants to do it. I'll put a link in the description for the new contest, and let's just scroll down to a couple of the stories. I'll pick 2 stories out of this, and you can decide if you think it was written by a human or by AI, and then I will show you the results, but feel free to pause it after I've read the stories, and you can put in the comments if you think story 1 was written by a human or AI, and the next story too. So, story 1. Mathin was born to the river folk, rooted on an island because, stories claimed, a curse kept the demons from walking across water. None questioned their lot. Life on the riverbanks passed them by, in barges and the toy-sized plod of beasts and wagons. Boatmen came and went, their goods bartered for fish, the men netted on foot in the shallows. Mathin and his kin lived in tranquility, isolated by settled tradition. Winters were mild, the swift current too deep to freeze solid. Lamentable drownings took those brash youngsters who strayed onto the treacherous ice. At 10 years of age, loudly fractious, Mathin belittled the grandam's belief. "Demons," he smirked with a swagger. "Do such terrors even exist?" Rumour suggested the mainland villagers shared his dismissive contempt. Children's tales whispered long nights by the hearth were but myth, unsubstantiated by living witness. When merchants desired a trestle bridge joining both shores by way of the island to access the roadway on the far side, their proposal sparked interest. The old wives muttered, fearful of change, yet fabled threats paled before the headier promise of wealth. Grown strapping in his discontent, Mathin clamoured for better prospects than tedious fishing, waist-deep in fast water. A plank bridge was built during summer, with Mathin driving the nails alongside the whistling labourers who secured the last span. A village festival welcomed the first eager islanders who stepped onto the riverbank with dry feet. The young mingled, dancing and feasting by roaring bonfires into the night. Left behind, the old wives barred their doors and huddled in trembling dread. Tipsy with the celebrants on the mainland, Mathin reeled to a sharp pang of ravenous hunger. When his hands sprouted talons and bestial scales, he watched the bold friends who had trodden the bridge alongside him grow spiked tails, then forked tongues, vicious fangs, and sharp teeth. Screams greeted the tearing of human flesh, soon silenced by the hideous shredding of organs. Thus, demons enticed to walk over the water escaped the restraint meant to safeguard the innocent from their ungodly predation. That's story 1. Human or AI? We'll read another. We'll read story 3. Now, one of these two was definitely written by a human and one by an AI. The demon didn't knock. It tore the chapel doors off their hinges and flung them into the pews. Father Aldrich barely had time to drop his rosary before the beast was on him. 8 feet tall, skin like charred leather, claws like sickles. It grinned, steaming breath curling from its fangs. "Fuck," Aldrich whispered. "You're real." The demon laughed, a horrible sound like bones grinding under iron. "God, stop listening. Time to pay for all the prayers you wasted." Aldrich pulled the blade from beneath the altar. Not blessed, just sharp. "Then come take your tithe, bastard." They clashed in a blur of claws and steel. Pews shattered, statues wept blood. Aldrich took a slash across the chest but drove his dagger into the demon's thigh, twisting hard. The thing roared and slammed him against the wall, cracking stone and ribs alike. "You think pain scares me?" Aldrich coughed, blood in his beard. "I've seen worse in confession." The demon snarled and lunged. He ducked, barely, shoved a candle holder through its eye. It howled, staggered back, but didn't fall. Aldrich stumbled to the altar, ripped open the floorboards. A second blade, silver this time, stolen from a hunter who made it out of the woods. Maybe blessed, maybe not. "You're just a creature," he growled, "not a curse. You bleed." "I feast on souls," the demon hissed. "Then choke on mine," Aldrich said and charged. Steel met sinew. Flesh burned. Blood splashed across broken icons. They fell together. When the villagers arrived, the chapel was a ruin. Smoke curled from its windows. Inside they found Father Aldrich, slumped atop a dead monster, its skull split wide, holy symbols scorched into its chest. The priest's heart had stopped. His hand still clutched the blade, and on the wall behind him, scrawled in ashen blood, "Don't pray. Fight." Okay, so what do you think? Was story 1 human or AI? And was story 3 human or AI? I do know the answers, but the one I had more fun reading was story 3. I feel like it was less purple, and the narrative just flowed a little bit smoother, at least for me, and drew me into it with the whole show don't tell and a lot of action sequences in such a short word count. So I enjoyed story 3 more. That's not to say story 1 was poorly written, just for my taste it was a little overwritten. So, the results. Story 1. While most people seem to think it was written by an AI, but in truth it was written by a human. Story 3 was split right down the middle. And the truth was it was written by an AI. So, just with that tiny sample of these two, I think that is a little bit worrying for humans who have not and will not embrace AI writing, because it's coming for us. At the moment, that might be only for short-form stories. It still gets a bit lost if it's trying to write anything over a chapter, really. It needs guidance, it'll lose continuity, plot points, and would need heavy editing. But for something this small, worryingly for contest writing, it seems very effective. You could say it sort of evens the playing field for new writers and more mature writers, because new writers really have nothing to lose by using AI. It brings their standard right up to almost the best human writers already for short story writing. And sure, they're not going to learn much from using AI. They're not going to become much better writers from doing it, but do they need to be now? Is writing going to become a job of prompting? Possibly. I suppose the skill they still need is editing. They need to be able to guide AI into telling a good story. So you still need to know what makes a good story and what makes a compelling character. so that's still probably something on the side of humans for now for longer stories. Let's read what Mark Lawrence says. When it came to choosing, on average the public got 3 wrong, 3 right, and couldn't decide on 2. That is to say, they're no more effective than a coin toss. 2 of these were too close to be statistically significant, but in some cases the votes were quite certain. A sizable majority of people thought my story was human-authored, and a sizable majority thought that Jenny's story was AI-authored. So it's not that people don't have strong opinions, instincts, it's just they're no more likely to be correct than tossing a coin. He also goes on to say he asked ChatGPT to guess which ones were AI and which were human, but it also did a poor job of being able to detect, which is a whole different issue and a whole different worry for writers at the moment, because their writing is getting a lot of false positives, because it is impossible to tell what is AI writing, or it soon will be impossible. Okay, so what do you make of that? How did you do in our little test? And I'll see you next time.